Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Simulators, and this was like very responsive, especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point.
Make you feel like you're really driving, it feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
When you're looking for a setup and a community that stands behind it. Team Watson Racing Setups. Serious setups. For drivers who are done guessing.
12 heats in the books, along with a pole shootout, as we welcome you back into virtual Daytona International Speedway, where the road to the PGR 500 rolls on this afternoon. And thank you all so much for joining us. We've got a lot to talk about here on Elimination Saturday. The PGR 500 starting to inch closer, but we have still got a lot to decide on who is going to make it to the duels later this afternoon. And as always, you're watching all the action right here on PGR eSports. We want to thank all of our sponsors that continue to make the PGR 500 all that it is. That includes That Towing Company, our flagship sponsor, for all that they do, along with, of course, a few others in terms of associate and title sponsors, including CCR with the Flying Aces for all their contributions throughout the week. Also want to give a big thank you to NBG Motorsports and Matthew Baker, who we saw advance through his heat earlier on this week. Dadbod Studios, which will be a dual sponsor coming up later this week. And of course, we do want to show a sponsor spotlight this afternoon, to Coasting Thunder. They will be sponsoring both Last Chance Qualifiers. From the biggest amusement parks to the smallest roadside attractions, Coasting Thunder crisscrosses the country, capturing the best travel destinations the U.S. has to offer. A powerhouse team of filmmakers turning experiences into stories, and if you want your location showcased the right way, Coasting Thunder is who you call. Well, we want to welcome you up here into the booth. I'm Austin Green alongside my co-host Dawson Wise. Tyler Vickery not going to be joining us here for the LCQs, but we will likely see him later this afternoon for the duels. And of course, our amazing producer Christian Hill covering all the hard work behind the scenes. Well, Dawson, here we are back at Daytona. You had a chance to watch the thrilling pole shootout last night, but as mentioned, Elimination Saturday, this is do or die for these guys in the LCQs.
Yeah, Austin, this is the grinding part of this event. Now that you're through your heat race, your job is far from over, and that begins here this afternoon with a pair of Last Chance Qualifier events coming up over the next couple of hours before, of course, we have the duels later this afternoon. Some drivers waiting for those. Some will have to race twice today to make it into the PGR 500 tomorrow. It's a gauntlet run for some. It's a gauntlet run for two more than we expected. Some storylines coming out of last night's pole shootout. Of course, we know the front row now, as James Bomar and Aaron Brown have locked their way on a PGR 500 front row for tomorrow afternoon. But a couple of drivers, unfortunately, not able to participate after last night's events.
And if you're just joining us for the first time this week, welcome back to, once again, virtual Daytona International Speedway. This place needs no name. Everybody knows it, especially in the super speedway community. And we are back again for two Last Chance Qualifiers here tonight. 31 plus degrees of banking in the corner here at Daytona. Track length 2.5 miles. Opened back in 1959, and it has put on some of the most historic finishes ever since. Well, the field is getting down track side and getting ready to go. So without further ado, we are going to get into your starting grid here for LCQ number 1. We talked about some of the guys that were able to transfer through to the heats that we're going to have some work to do tonight. Joshua Newman, though, is going to start from the pole position here in LCQ number 1. He'll have one of the VRX and PGR drivers to his outside, the 74 Brian Hennings. Look for him to be a favorite here in LCQ number 1. Devin Maines will roll off from the 3rd spot. It's going to be Alex Coffey to his outside in 4th. Another one of the super speedway favorites, Raul Alves, will roll off from the top 5. Michael Triscaro, series owner, will roll to his outside in the 6th spot. Yaroslav Donskoy rolls from the 7th position here tonight. He'll have Craig Janzak, one of the Team Conti Sim Performance drivers, to his outside in 8th. Andrew Hansley rolls off from 9th in the 29 machine, and it's going to be Devin Smirkar in 10th.
Dylan Ast will roll from the inside of row number 6 in car number 99. Alongside him, it's Paul Gallimore, one of the Beast Mode Performance entries, and in the TWRS House drivers. On row 7, it's Julian Ricky in car number 33. And one of the stories of the weekend so far, Zachary King, after his drive through his last lap of his heat race, through a crash and through a blowover, King made his way into this LCQ. He'll start from 14th. Row 8, Talon Drake in the 9 looked very impressive in his heat race. He'll go from 15th. It's Gage Wenzel, another one of the stories of the heat race, overcoming some adversity to make it in. He'll start from 16th. Row 9, a pair of super speedway aces. Nick Seipel in car 75 will try to work his way through the field from the inside of row 9. And it's Justin Champagne, one of the drivers that started last year's PGR 500. He'll go from 18th. Rounding out the top 20, the 82 of Munatsi Major and the 30 of Kyle Urbanik.
And another one of the Team Conti Sim drivers in the field here tonight, Brenton Hunt. He will roll off from the 25th spot. It's going to be Corey Moore to his outside in 22nd. Corey Wright will roll off 23rd. It's going to be Jordan Stenzel back in 24th. Moving on back to row number 13, Jason Dinsmore in the 24. He'll have some work to do if he wants to transfer through to the duels here this afternoon. Austin Call rolls off 26. He'll have Stephen Callahan to his back in 27th. Larson Parker 28th. Joshua Sutherland in 29th. And the last man here in LCQ, at least in the top 30, is going to be Drew Blaze. Going on back to the last couple of starters here in LCQ1. Mark Vondell rolls off 31st, and Jack Simpson, a late addition, will roll off 32nd. Well, Dawson, obviously we had a lot of drama throughout the week with the heats, and then, of course, the pole shootout, which we saw a lot of late race drama in that as well, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But the field here getting one more check of the tires as we get ready to go green here in LCQ number 1. We've got more action coming up after this. LCQ 2 will be in the same broadcast, and then, of course, everybody hoping they can make it to the duels this afternoon, and then, of course, working into this evening. iRacing.com pace car going to run one more lap under caution here before we officially get to green flag racing. So, Dawson, let's talk about what you saw in the pole shootout that you liked and what you're expecting here in the LCQs.
Well, an exhilarating race last night, and if that is anything to be expected here for the remainder of this weekend, between today and, of course, tomorrow in the feature, we are in for an absolute treat here on Elimination Saturday. Last night featured some of the biggest moves and biggest blocks that we have seen. The lights came on and the intensity got turned up to 11, and it was a really, really fun race to watch. And again, a lot of those drivers going to be in the duels here later on this afternoon. Of course, Aaron Brown and James Bomar, their work is basically done. They'll start a duel race later on. They'll start duel race number 1, but they're locked in. They're on the front row for tomorrow's PGR 500. It was a really, really fun race, but a bit of a stipulation change today as we'll take 11 drivers from each LCQ instead of 10. Austin, obviously, we talk about some of the circumstances at the end of last night's pole shootout.
Yeah, and obviously with some of those circumstances, a tough break for some of the guys who were favorited going into Sunday. They were already locked into the duels, but obviously, you know, for that reason, Dawson, not going to see them here tonight and not going to see them for the rest of the weekend. Now, before we go any further here, talking about the race info for these LCQs, obviously, again, in the daytime, we will be talking about nighttime races once we get to the duels, but track temp, maybe the most notable difference here in the LCQs. It is down about 20 to 30 degrees from what we saw throughout the heat. So I'm very interested to see how that affects the momentum of these different lines, if guys are able to push maybe a little bit more. We've seen how sporty the TWRS custom set has been so far throughout the week, but here tonight, it is the final attempt. So you got to go for it. You got to get aggressive early, especially with the chaos that can break out here at Daytona. Meanwhile, on the front row for a guy like Brian Hennings, he's been in this spot before. We've seen him in these big events, but it's going to be all about if he can get himself in position to advance through here tonight. Once again, it'll be a 30-lap race to decide it here at Daytona. It's going to be short, it's going to go quick, and it is going to be fun. If you're just tuning in, we appreciate you joining us here. The LCQ's getting ready to get underway as the field is going to work into the Simrat Market restart zone. Time to see who's going home. Green flag in the air at Daytona.
The field works off turn number 2 for the first time here at LCQ race number 1, and it is all civilized so far with Brian Hennings leading the way up on the outside lane. He's got a push from an ice partner up there in Alex Coffey. That's one of the drivers we expected to be up front in this LCQ race. On the inside, it's Josh Newman and Devin Maines leading the way. Raul Aldis and Michael Triscaro bring up third cars on the end on either lane, as both now rocket off of turn number 4. Hennings will lead by a car length, make it 2 car lengths, almost 2.5. Is at the line. This is the driver for Team PGR that leads the way on lap 1.
And the 18 Aflac colors for Austin Call already looking to the high side. He was trying to make a move to the front, but couldn't get any takers. He'll have to shuffle in line all the way back at the pack. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, still 2 by 2. As they work off the banking from turn number 2, Brian Hennings has got the lead, and he has got a stack up of pushers behind him. The 54 of Alex Coffey. Keep that name in mind as we go towards the end of the race here tonight. We know how aggressive he can be at these super speedways. Inside now starts to roll once again. The 17 of Josh Newman getting pushed by the 5 of Devin Maines. But so far, Dawson, it's been the high side that has proven to be more efficient early at Daytona.
Yeah, you can be aggressive here. You mentioned Michael Triscaro wanting to be one of those aggressive drivers. I think Alex Coffey is one of them as well, but I think they both realize the situation that they're in. They're both up front. And unlike in last night's pole shootout, really in your heat race as well, I feel like being up front in this LCQ, you want to be a little bit more conservative. Again, today, we start to get into that period of the race where the fast repair goes away and you have a little bit less breathing room. If you make a wrong move or if something happens around you, you make a move down to the inside and all of a sudden it just doesn't work out. Now you're in the middle in the hornet's nest. I think being up top and being a little more conservative is going to be, more preferred today. I think that's why you're seeing Triscaro, Coffee, and even Chance staying in line right now, being very, very calm around the guys around them, at least early in these stages of these races. Because also in those heat races, you got a few laps to run with those guys. These are all guys from all different heat races. You don't know all the guys around you yet. You're seeing guys choose to be a little bit conservative. Of course, Triscaro also has a teammate 2 cars in front of him for Team PGR, that being Brian Hennings leading the way. Don't want to upset that if you're the 34, as really both lines have stayed the same thus far.
And for the 97 of Janzak, rocking the body armor colors for his Chevy Camaro here tonight. Talked about him not really making many moves now, but he did pick up a couple spots right out of the gate as he continues to roll up top on the high side. Still 2x2 down the super stretch. A lot calmer of a start here to the race in LCQ1 than what we saw throughout all 12 heats so far this week, including the pole shootout, which was, of course, about as aggressive as what we have seen so far. But here tonight, everybody calm so far. And you heard me keep mentioning tonight, we are actually here in the afternoon. And again, we've got 2 more duels that are going to be coming up later this afternoon after we wrap up the LCQs. And man, so far, so good. The high side now starts to fade, though. The 54 currently leading that high side, but Raul Alves cannot seem to get the momentum. That's going to allow the 78 to now make a jump to the high side. Meanwhile, on the bottom, Brian Hennings continues to lead at Daytona.
A little bit surprised early on in this race. The inside has been the more dominant line. Trouble. Newman's around mains. Coffee, Triscaro, and others. Donskoy's in it. The big one strikes on the back straightaway. This is 15+ cars.
Just as quickly as you think the pace is calm, we've got our first caution here of the night, presented by the NASRA 360 Racing Network. Only 5 laps in, and this one is going to give some significant damage to a few of the front runners here. It started somewhere right around the front of the field. You notice the 54 of Alves got sideways. In fact, it was actually up towards Hennings and Mains, the first cars that jumped sideways, but then as Raul Alves behind him got involved, the rest of the field broke apart on the super stretch. And this is going to be interesting here. Again, with only 30 laps here in LCQ1, nobody going to have to go in for any sort of pitch strategy, but this is definitely going to shuffle the field, at least in terms of track position. Dawson, you look at some of the guys that were involved in that. We were 2x2, but it just looked like chaos broke out on the backstretch.
Yeah, it looked like maybe a push gone wrong around the Josh Newman machine. Devin Mains involved in that starting up as well. Looked like you mentioned Raul Alves in the 78, possibly being a piece of that. Also, we'll go back and take a look as we get under the first caution flag of the afternoon. You see Mains is getting pushed by Donskoy from behind, and it's actually a move up for Brian Hennings, and Josh Newman starts to follow him. And unfortunately, as he tries to come back down and reestablish the bottom, Donskoy is pushing right through the back of Devin Mains and gets into the 5 and turns him sideways, and it is complete calamity from there. Look at the amount of cars that get involved in this on the back straightaway. This is half of the field here in the first LCQ that gets some form of piece of this, again starting towards the front of the field as guys started to slide in. Of course, again, it was Mains getting pushed by Donskoy into Newman, and this is almost reverse tunnel vision. We talked about tunnel vision back in the heats. We had a couple incidents of it. This is almost the reverse. A guy moves up the racetrack, and Newman went to follow. He's trying to follow the back bumper with the car in front of him. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work out. You're on board with Zachary King. I think the luck in terms of getting through the crashes is going to run out for him right here as the crash is going to spark up in front of him. You see Newman go up, and all of a sudden he comes back down, and the wreck starts to the right. And boy, there's just nowhere to go. Look at the track get completely blocked as King slides down to the inside wall.
Yeah, and a pretty big hit there, too, for Zachary King. He'll have to go in and potentially get this damage worked on. And I believe these guys, again, we'll get confirmation on this here in just a moment, but I believe these guys do have one fast repair here in the LCQs. We know for sure they don't in the duels and the feature, but that would obviously be crucial here. And for some of the guys that would still be in contention of this race, even though, of course, you are going to have to go to the back of the field. And see a lot of guys here are still coming down to the pits to try to get some more damage worked on. One of those, of course, being the 51 of Zachary King, who we just saw involved in that first caution of the night. And now this is going to give us a chance to reset, take a breath, and get back going here with somewhere right around 20-ish laps to go here from the World Center of Racing. Now back at the front of the field, the man that currently leads them all is the 74 of Brian Hennings. Raul Alves actually just got a brief piece of that as the 54 got up the racetrack, but he didn't actually get involved in the wreck. So for the 78 machine, he will stay on track up 3 from where he started this race at. And the biggest mover and the biggest, I guess, opportunist, if you will, from that incident is Talon Drake. Makes it through and is now up 12 spots from where he started this race at in 3rd. You go all the way back, though, towards around the top 10, top 11, Dawson. We mentioned that 11 drivers are going to advance through to the duels here this afternoon. Right now, it goes back to right around Stephen Callahan, Larson Parker, Corey Moore. These are the guys that are right around those final transfer spots. And you know, with some of the big names that just got sent to the back with damage from that incident, that it is going to get really aggressive right around those final transfers.
Well, it's been aggressive around the transfers all week. How many times in a heat race did we see the storyline become a transfer spot crash on the final lap or the final overtime attempt that ended up shuffling who got in and who went home? It was all but about 2 of our 12 heat races that had some kind of shuffle inside the transfer spots on the final 2 laps. So I certainly think that's in the back of the drivers' minds today, especially considering, again, that these are a little bit more exclusive races, a little bit bigger fields here in the LCQs, and a little bit less drivers moving on, so a little bit less room for error and a little bit less room for those shuffles to happen on the last couple laps. And of course, these are guys that transferred in, so these are all guys that finished top 10 in their heat race. So again, the fields get stronger, the spots get a little bit less, especially as we get on later into this afternoon. The fields get really big. So I think for sure that's in the back of the drivers' minds what happens at the end of these heat races. And certainly you don't want to be where that happens on the last restart here in this LCQ. Now, I do want to clarify, as I've gotten confirmation from Race Control, the fast repair has actually gone away earlier this year. There is no fast repair here in the last chance qualifiers either. So these guys only have 1 car from here on out to the end of tomorrow's 500-mile event. So an interesting storyline there, and what I believe to be a change from last year, where guys got a fast repair all the way through to the duels. That is not the case this year. The fast repair is gone, which is why you saw extensive damage repairs going on pit road.
Yeah, and that's huge implications, right, Dawson? You look back here, and the guys that are, I would say, about 25th, 26th on back, a lot of them have at least some sort of damage on these race cars here that is going to affect their performance here as we get back to green flag racing. Michael Triscaro, one of those drivers, Craig Janzak, a couple of the guys that were just playing it patient up front. And now all of a sudden they're going to be in desperation mode, and for their case, maybe even going to need another caution to go in and try to get some more optional repairs done to those race cars. Now back at the front of the field, we're back to 2x2. Lights are going to go off on the pace. We want to again thank our sponsor here, the Yellow Flags, throughout the week, powered by the NASCAR Racing Network. And we've got, of course, the NASCAR 6 Hours of Le Mans coming up on keep in mind with that big incident, a lot of the back half of the field now is going to be contending with damage. Good news, though, for some of these guys up front. But for choice, do you stay low or do you go to the high side? For the moment, he's going to stay down low further back. The 78 of Alves, he goes to the bottom. This is now going to give the top an opportunity to try to charge up the run. Interesting move here as the 82 of Drake's going to go to the high side. Here comes the cavalry up top.
It was all of a sudden up top too. On the bottom side, it looked like the run was going to be better. Everybody bailed to the bottom and worked to the inside. That's back around again. The Alves and Seipel. Very, very quickly here with Talon, Drake, Gage, Wenzel, Devin Smirker, all guys that jumped down a moment ago that have jumped up now in front of the Don Julio Camry of Justin Champagne. Further out back, Austin Call going to make the first 3-wide move. He'll take Donskoy with him. There is one more car that is up top with those cars. The outside lane up against the safer barrier. So 3 wide, about 5 to 8 rows deep in the field. Big push up front, Talon. Drake. That's a handful for the Red Bull Chevy off the bumper of Gage Wenzel, but he's able to keep it underneath him. Now the bottom gets the roll. Hennings, Albus, Seipel, Moore, and one more car coming clear on the inside. That's Larson Parker, who's going to jump topside. Seipel's going to go with him, and all of a sudden back to 2x2 in turn 3.
And further back, Donskoy is going to bail out of the third lane, so it's now going to go just down to Call and the 62 of Sutherland. Yet for Gallimore, though, currently leads the way as they go into turn 1. And as you look a little bit further in the distance, Dawson, looked like there may have been a lap car there briefly, but it looks like actually these guys are the only lead pack around the track right now. Still 2x2 off of turn 2.
The lap car was Jason Dinsmore in car number 24 as he works down to the apron. The field just goes by him, but you're right. Every one of the other 31 cars in this field are under a blanket in this lead pack, all within 1.3 seconds of one another. Gallimore continues to lead the way. We're approaching 10 laps to go. We have simplified down to 2 wide back to Monotsi Major, 8 rows deep in the field. The Blue 82 trouble. Out back, it's Zachary King. Multiple other cars involved. Coffee, I think, is one of them. Another's going to spin to the apron. It's another multi-car crash with 12 laps to go.
Stencil's in it. Looks like Devin Maines may have been involved as well, as he's got major right front damage to the suspension of his number 5 Chevy. He will be done for the night, assuming that they are not able to get that wheel fixed. The 17 of Stephen Callahan, I don't think he actually got involved, or if he did, didn't get any damage. And of course, some of the other drivers that you saw involved in that, yes, the 54 of Alex Coffey, still a little bit of damage to the front nose of his precision racing machine. This one is going to be very interesting to go back and get a look at here, Dawson, on exactly what went wrong as they were coming through the trial there. Man, that was a big secondary hit. Looks like for Coffey, though, who is currently really running on the high side here, it actually starts on the bottom. One car gets turned up to the top, and from there it is just a mess as guys try to scatter. Not quite as big as what we had in the last wreck, Dawson, but certainly still some notable damage here to a lot of the cars that were trying to advance to the front.
Yeah, tough break for the guys out back. I saw that one starting to form again as those stack-ups started to happen. As the top lane tried to get rolling, about 6 cars back of Monotsi Major is where this one gets started. And you talk about the stack-ups and the push has gone wrong. And right there, unfortunately, another case of that towards the tail end of the lead pack. And for guys towards the tail end, that's a tough break, because now not only were you outside the transfer spots, now you've got to come fix damage on pit road. That includes King. Dylan Ast is on pit road. Devin Maines is sitting on pit road as well. So for multiple drivers that were towards the tail end of the lead pack, not only now do you have to work inside the transfer positions, but you also are going to have to work your way out of some damage repair here late in the going of this first LCQ race. So a tough break for them. Multiple have taken the trip down pit road. Corey Wright, Julian Ricky, Alex Coffey, Jordan Stencil, Zach King, Andrew Hansley. We talked about Ast. And Devin Maines has actually gone a lap down in car number 5. So a tough break for those guys. And with only 10 laps to go, and as much as the lines have really not been moving that much in terms of the third lane, other than Gallimore and company, it's a tough ask now to get back inside the transfer spots.
Certainly is, and yeah, as mentioned there, Ast getting the worst damage of that, but then also kind of a secondary incident there between Maines and the 83 of Stencil that collected those two, and potentially now going to start to see some cars retire, not only here from LCQ1, but that would officially put an end to their attempt at making the PGR 500 this year. And if you're just joining us, going to be 10 laps to go when we cross the line next time here. And last chance qualifier number 1 in the journey to the PGR 500. Just 1 day away from the big event, less than 24 hours from now, we will drop the green on the Great American Sim Race, the PGR 500. And one thing we also know now, Dawson, we know who is going to set the pole for the biggest race of the year.
Yeah, we know the 2 men that will bring the field to green tomorrow afternoon, again by virtue of last night's pole shootout. If you're just joining us, James Bomar was the winner of the pole shootout last night, the winner back in heat number 1. His job today, a lot easier all of a sudden, as he'll go from duel 1 later on about 4 o'clock Eastern. But due to starting up front in that race, he'll be able to just kind of kick his feet up and relax and be able to try to help a couple teammates. We heard him talking about that last night. He's got a couple of teammates here today. Talon Drake is actually one of those cars. Bomar and company are helping try to get Talon Drake into that first duel race later this afternoon. And of course, his goal is to help his teammates get back into the PGR 500 tomorrow to join him, so that he has a little bit more of an advantage there as well. Aaron Brown is going to start to his outside in the 2nd spot tomorrow, as he finished 2nd in last night's pole shootout. Again, the winner of heat number 5. As he finished 2nd last night, looked very good in that pole shootout. A heck of a recovery for him too, by the way. He said at one point in last night's race, he had over 13 minutes of damage to fix on pit road. He got most of it fixed as much as he could and drove back to a 2nd place finish. So a really impressive drive for him to be on the front row after a heat win earlier in the week. And he certainly has put himself on the radar of guys to watch tomorrow as well when we get back to Daytona for the PGR 500.
And that is, of course, obviously, Dawson, one of the perks of having momentum. You look at a guy like Aaron Brown, he already knew the position that he was in after winning his heat race, was locked into the duels, and figured, hey, why not? You might as well try to keep yourself in it. And that is why you never give up here in these super speedway races. And we talk about these cars and the way they take damage. Also a lot more forgiving with just staying with the draft. We talked about all the cars that had damage after the first caution here tonight. Most of the guys involved were able to stay with the draft. Some of them struggling to advance forward, but it's still significant because we have seen so many last lap wrecks this week that just being anywhere inside the lead draft, you will have a chance coming down to the checkered flag here at Daytona. And we are going to go back green with single-digit laps remaining here in LCQ number 1. And the man who will lead us back to green for this restart is going to be Paul Gallimore. Yaroslav Donskoy to his outside in the number 10 Robin Hood machine. And that's going to be Austin Call and Nick Seipel back in row number 2. Raul Alves rounds out the top 5 at the moment, but a lot of hungry guys that are looking on back. Now, Dawson, we talked obviously a lot about what it means to try to transfer through, and obviously it's only going to be the top 11 that do make it through, but there's a little bit of money here on the line for the LCQ, so you got to keep that in mind if you're racing for the win at the end. But I think we'll see these guys take a little bit better care of each other than what we saw in the heat races. All right, out of turn number 4 we go. Getting ready to get back to green flag racing again. Restart zone, not only tonight but for the rest of the week, is presented by Sim Wrap Market. We appreciate them for coming on board. Here we go. Field going to roll back into the Sim Wrap Market restart zone. The 11 of Paul Gallimore will see the green flag back in the air, and it is going to be just 9 laps to go at Daytona.
And he got a great jump on the bottom side of the racetrack, did Gallimore. He'll have Nick Seipel come to his aid, and Austin Call's going to bail. Top to bottom for the Aflac Camry. He'll go to the back of Seipel and leave Donskoy, Alves, and Wenzel, your top 3 on the outside lane. We're going to throw on the inside a couple more cars. Urbanik is into the picture for the first time. Smrecker, Craig Jancic is returned to the picture as well. Pulling through on the bottom lane. Back further, that's the yellow, blue, and white Ford Mustang from McCullough Motorsports, Mark Von Dell. Got a provisional to this LCQ. 3 wide. Jancic down around the inside of Urbanik. Tight 3 wide back there. As up front, Austin Call to the outside. He's looking for a trip to the lead. Alves gets turned. Raul Alves right in front of the pack. Multiple cars pile in, and Michael Trescaro is in it. Urbanik is in it, and others pile into a multi-car accident in turn 4.
And the rough night is going to continue for the guys who got involved in an incident early, stuck at the back of the field, and now involved in what is your 3rd caution here of LCQ number 1. And this one, I don't know if it's going to be a night ender for anybody, but again, we're starting to run out of laps here. Every caution that you get, you lose track position if you're one of the drivers involved, and for everybody else, also starting to run out of time to try to advance position. This one looked like it did break out somewhere towards the back half of the field, right around where the 36 machine was running. As we'll go back and get a look at it, you see Raul Alves here in the 78 machine up front. Ooh, looks like almost maybe a little bit of a checkup. Something gets him stacked up on the nose of the 70, or excuse me, the nose of the 36. And whatever gets him turned around, it's on from there. As you're coming into the turn here, Dawson, there is nowhere to go. Everybody scatters to miss him, high, low. But ultimately, a lot get collected, Minazzi major. But more notably, it looks like Michael Trescaro with significant damage, and the 88 sliding in there late as well.
Yeah, this is pretty typical for late super speedway racing. You saw the move up actually from Austin Call. He jumps in front of Yaroslav Donskoy, and it stacks this outside lane up. And then Raul Alves is going to get turned on the bumper of Wenzel in the secondary, and it's helpless for Raul Alves as he gets turned sideways in front of multiple different cars. You see Trescaro pile in. Newman is in it. Urbanik is in it. Sutherland is in it. Can't particularly tell which car that is. It's got the QR code on the roof, but that car is involved as well. As they all come sliding to a stop, there's actually more that are involved further up as well. We get our first onboard look at this one. You're not far out back from Brian Hennings, who was not far behind the scene of this one. Minazzi major, you see him get a piece of it as well. This is Josh Sutherland. He's trying everything he can to stay out of it, and may have just gotten the wall. Man, for Josh Sutherland, that may be very lucky that he only tapped the wall a couple of times. That's a heck of a drive to stay out of that crash. There were actually cars, again, that slid sideways further up from those guys. So I'm curious who those cars were as well. But again, you talk about the guys that were involved from Alves on back. One of the biggest stories out of that, Michael Trescaro. He's got big damage in this one in car 34.
And it was interesting, Alves almost was able to catch this car. Watch him try to grab it here as it first starts to snap around, but just so tough to do. It's right as you're going into the banking. Not much he can do. Austin Call, Donskoy, everybody in front of it gets away, but for the guys out back, again, that's where we saw most of the carnage take place in that one. And the car with the QR code was Drew Blaze. He got some front-end damage from this one as well, as we're going to now set up for a late race restart. Not quite going to be an overtime attempt just yet, But again, this will probably put us back to green flag racing with either 5 or less than 5 laps to go. But for Paul Gallimore, it has been all good since he got his way to the front of the field. You talked earlier, Dawson, about how tough it's been to lead laps here at Daytona. It's been a little bit easier to get to the front of the field with this package, but it has been very difficult to stay and maintain the lead, especially with what we saw in the pole shootout last night. But I think for Gallimore, and really a note for anybody, Dawson, going through the rest of the week, when you start to get this late in these races, track position's king. It is all about getting up here and staying up here, and with this many cautions towards the end of a race, it seems to make that job just a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely it does. And you talked about the the importance of being up here in the heat race, and you kind of always got to think about now as we get ready for a late restart what happened at the end of those heat races. Again, I talked about it being in the back of the guys' minds earlier. It's got to be in the front of your mind now. We're going to be going back green with 5 laps to go. This is when the carnage really began in the heat races up well inside the transfer positions. And so I think that has to be a storyline here. Back around, I'm looking at the Devin Sprecher, Justin Champagne, Craig Jancic position. That's about where the crashes have started on the final lap of the preliminary races so far. And then last night in the pole shootout, the crash started with the leader going into turn 3. And a bit of a late block there. So I think you always have to consider, if you're a guy up front, you are not safe. No one in this front pack is safe per se getting ready to go back under the green flag on this late run. Even if this race breaks the trend and doesn't use an overtime attempt, by the way, we have not had a race at this point this week not use an overtime attempt. Even if we break that pattern again on that final lap, we have seen carnage erupt in every single race to this point. It's got to be on the drivers' minds as we get ready to go back green, especially, again, considering what's on the line. You can go to the duels. You will be one step away from the PGR 500. Guys will be willing to throw their cars on the line, throw their cars into spots that maybe in a normal race you would not be willing to, and that could very well cause some chaos and calamity on this final lap.
Absolutely, and quick update, it is going to be $30 to each of the LCQ winners here this afternoon. So a little bit of extra money in the pocket, but Dawson, I would say maybe not enough for me to get up there and try to get aggressive, knowing that you're in a spot to transfer through to the duels, which will obviously have a little bit more money on the line to win those. So those are going to be exciting coming up later this afternoon. But for the guys up front here, I look at Gallimore and Austin Call. Austin Call had to grind his way up here. He started towards the back. He is up 24 positions from where he started this race at, and he is going to find himself on the front row here for a 5-lap to go restart at the World Center of Racing. Talk about Nick Seipel, arguably the better pusher here in row 2, but Donskoy has been phenomenal so far here in LCQ number 1. Devin Champagne, another one of the fan favorites. We'll see what he can do. Mark Von Dell from McCullough Motorsports trying to see if he can advance through and potentially find a couple of teammates in the duels or the feature coming up later this afternoon and then tomorrow. But it's going to start with him trying to advance through here in LCQ number 1. Brian Hennings starting on the front row tonight, currently finds himself back in 9th, and the last man to transfer in at the moment would be Larson Parker, who sits back in 11th. Well, again, it's going to be 5 laps to go here from the World Center of Racing. If we get another caution, it will send us into overtime. Field working back into the Simrat Market restart zone. Green flag back in the air. 5 laps to go at Daytona, and it's a good restart for Gallimore on the front row. He's going to get the big jump, and now he's got to make a decision. Maybe too big of a jump for the 11 car, but now the inside starts to roll. Nick Seipel quick to jump to the high side, but he sees Call drop down, and he's going to cover that move as well. Up top, Donskoy, the man that leads him, but you see the 38 of Champagne, some front nose damages. He cannot get there, and the outside struggles as they work onto the super stretch.
5 cars clear. It will be 6 by the time Talon Drake arrives on the scene. They've got Jack Simpson with them. Simpson, a late addition to this LCQ, has come forward from 32nd into a transfer spot. Drake's going to jump to the outside when he gets there. Donskoy still 2 car lengths back of him, trying to work the run as Champagne jumps out of line. Is going to jump down in front of Larson Parker. Donskoy will arrive on the scene quickly here off turn 4. Trouble. Out back, it's Julian Ricky. The 33, Zach King's involved. Raul Alvis is involved, and this caution will send us to overtime. Wenzel is in it. Oh, another car is going to slide in there as well. And multiple cars crash through the tri-oval one more time, but it's under the caution flag. Stencil is in it as well.
And the trend will continue, as Dawson mentioned earlier, an overtime caution rather, in every single heat race, including the pole shootout as well. And that will continue here into LCQ number 1. We'll go back and get a look at this here in just a moment and what sparked this one up. But for a couple guys towards the back, Dawson, who have been involved in the last couple, it just feels like the bad day continues to get worse. It looked like this may have started somewhere right around the 33 of Julian Reese. who was getting pushed by the 98 at the time. We'll go back, and yeah, there you see the 33 was already spinning. And curious to see how that one exactly sparked here. And then there's Raul Alves getting involved. Obviously, really nowhere for him to go at that point. Zachary King, nothing he could do. One car rockets by the outside. And that was obviously a really close call there for the 24 of Jason Dinsmore. Here's another look at it. Julian Reese, as they're rolling off of turn 4, washes up just a little bit. And, well, that may have been a little bit of too much aggression right there from the 98 machine, who tried to sneak to the inside. Obviously, it's late in the race, Dawson. We know that. But you still got to show at least a little bit of patience when it comes to trying to work your way to the front, and not going to be the case right there. The 98 going to have a lot of work to do now to try to recover, as is the 33 of Reese, and a couple more that got involved on the back end of that caution.
That's Brenson Hunt, the car that's going to get into the back of the Julian Ricky machine, back around the 20th position at the time. A tough break for Ricky. Again, he's just driving along. He does wash up a little bit, but you're not expecting to have a guy come to your left rear quarter panel right there on entry when you go into the corner. But Brenson Hunt will be given the cause of caution penalty there. Again, keep that in mind, because, you know, again, we've seen cause of caution penalties be a problem for some guys so far over the course of the weekend. We talked about Matt Cox specifically back in heat number 11 being the first disqualification of the week. Now, those standards will be loosened a bit in the longer races coming up later, as it will be 3 causes of caution that will be a DQ. The second will be a drive-through, so we'll have to see there what the standard will be in these 2 LCQ races. Brenson Hunt, though, it gets into the back of Ricky, and it's on from there. A tough break for Raul Alves. Man, a good day at the start, but for Alves, it's a good day gone bad very quickly, as he's involved not only in the last caution and gets big damage there, now is going to collect some more damage here inside of 5 laps to go. That is a tough break for him. Zachary King, again, a bad day gone worse for him, as he's been involved in a few of them now in the 51. You're on board with Alves. He's 19th. We'll see what the status of that car is. We know King continues to sit on pit road as well. A number of cars have made their way to the pit lane for some extensive repairs under this caution. And of course, we talked about a couple from the last one. Do want to give a couple housekeeping notes. Michael Tresquero is multiple laps down in the 30th position. It appears his run is over for the 34. So a tough break for Tresquero. 2 cars officially called it a day that are no longer on the racetrack. Devin Maines and Kyle Urbanik have both pulled their cars behind the inside wall. So 29 remain for 11 spots.
Starting to see the attrition really take shape here at Daytona. It's going to be a 2-lap shootout to decide it for even the cars that are still in contention. With damage, it's tough enough to get up to the front, going all the way from the back in 2 laps' time. Doing that with damage, not going to be impossible, but certainly going to be a very tough ask at that. How about Yaroslav Donskoy? We talked about the night he's been having. Currently finds himself in that 7th spot. And he's going to have some work to do here, but he is in a transfer position. That's kind of the biggest, I guess you would say, the biggest advantage for him at the moment, is he's got a little bit of a cushion behind him. Jack Simpson, Justin Champagne, Mark Vondell, and Larson Parker, the rest of the guys behind that number 10 car that would currently transfer through, but obviously still trying to advance maybe a little bit of position here as we get going green, because Dawson, obviously you get 3 wide and you think 7th is a good spot to be in. Next thing you know, you find yourself back in 12th or 13th place. So I definitely think if you're outside of the top 5, you still got to stay aggressive, but with 2 laps to go, it is not going to leave a lot of time for the guys on the outside looking in.
Well, the tough part here, I think, is you've got to consider what the outside lane's been able to do today, and that is not much. The only run to the front that we have seen off the outside lane was Paul Gallimore and Austin Call and company earlier in the afternoon that were able to make that line work and get all the way to the front. So for it to only have worked 1 time on this cooler track temp, you're curious now as to whether or not we'll have enough time for that line to work for you to be able to even go up there and make up spots. You may have to make them up the hard way and try to cycle through the middle lane, which we've seen work at times, or hope obviously for a crash on the final lap. Again, we've seen that multiple times so far this week. So I think if you're the guys 10th on back, I mean, it's a bit demoralizing to see that the 3rd lane just may not go as much as we've seen it go in the heat races with the hotter track temps. So I'm curious there. Does anybody try at number 1? But number 2, if they do, does it go anywhere? And I look back around Corey Wright, Brian Hennings. I look back to Drew Blaze or Josh Newman or Manazzi Major, or even Raul Alves. That car's still got enough power underneath it to try to make it work. But man, so far I just have not seen enough evidence that the 3rd lane will work this early in a run on a short dash to the finish.
It's going to be fun to watch here depending on how it plays out. But I look at the outside line, more damage for a couple of the lead pushers here on the top. The bottom looks to be clean all the way from Gallimore back through Austin Call and Talon Drake. It's going to be all about, though, how good of a restart can you get here if you're Paul Gallimore. You don't want to get too big of a jump, but you definitely want to be able to control whichever lane's going to have the momentum as you dive off into turn 1. It's going to be just 5 miles remaining. Again, only one attempt at a green-white checkered. Both laps will be ran under green to decide who is advancing through to the duels and who is going home. Time to find out who's going to take home the victory in LCQ1. Green flag back in the air. 2 laps to go at Daytona.
Good start for Gallimore, man. He has been on these restarts all afternoon long to this point when he's gotten up front. The decision time now here into turn 1. He'll stick with his helper the past couple of restarts. Austin Call, Talon Drake is in that lane. Donskoy's in that lane. The outside really struggling here. Cycle back to 4th. Back to 5th now as they work off turn 2 as that outside lane just has not gotten going. It allows Donskoy to come clear. Champagne trying to come clear. Jack Simpson is with them. Now the outside starts to roll, but boy, a severe disadvantage.
Yeah, it was a good choice by Gallimore to stay on the inside. Meanwhile, up top, they've got about a 3-deep tandem now. Janzak trying to do whatever he can with that damage, number 97. Now they're going to start to wiggle. The 26 gets shot out of line. That's going to allow the middle to roll through, but the inside continues to be dominant. Here we go. White flag in the air, 1 lap to go, and they're going to wreck out back.
Yeah, it was Sutherland that got turned. Smrekers involved. It's a big crash. Major, Newman, and others. Multiple cars are involved in this one towards the tail of the field. They continue to crash all the way back down towards turn 1. This will leave a smaller group that runs all the way back through about the 14th position that's in line here up front. So not much battling to do anymore as they work down the back. No moves yet. And Austin, I would not be surprised if these guys stay in line. The top 11 get in, and I see 10 in this pack headed to 3.
We're going to find out if Austin Call wants to play it safe. The 18 starts to back up, maybe looking for one more run off of turn 4. Gallimore leads, but will he be able to hold on? Here we go, down to the start-finish. The Paul Gallimore machine's going to block to the high side. Call looks a lane higher. 3 wide, drag race back to the finish. Gallimore gets the run. Paul Gallimore wins LCQ1 at Daytona.
How about a 3-wide drag race to open Elimination Saturday? How much better can it get than that? As Call makes the first move, Talon Drake made what I thought to be an even better move to get to the rail ride on the safer barrier. But Gallimore gets the most important push of the day from Donskoy, is really his best helper all day long. Got him to the front and keeps him there at the end. A big win there for Paul Gallimore in LCQ number 1.
A big win and a great job there by everybody that was left in that lead line on the last lap to be able to hang on and not make a bad situation worse. We saw that big wreck, Dawson, which I was looking back at it as we were calling the last lap. Took out everybody 12th on back. I'm curious to see who, of course, the final guy that transferred through was, but it went all the way back to somewhere right around Larson Parker. And again, you mentioned they did drag race 3 wide to the line, but nobody did anything too crazy that put that group at risk, knowing that they were all in a position to transfer through to the duels. And for Paul Gallimore, $30 richer. So what was already maybe a pretty decent start to the week, obviously making it to the second round here in the LCQ, just got a little bit better. He has made his money back, and now we'll have a chance to go on and race in the LCQ. He will start a little bit further back in that duel, so he'll have some work to do later this afternoon. But again, a fantastic win for the number 11. And we'll look at your results here in just a moment. Talking about that last wreck, Dawson, though, one more time at the end. Just chaos here coming down to the end of it. You had a couple of guys that got shot out of line, and it just feels like when you get a lane that's not able to develop, everybody starts to get desperate and feels like they have to be the one to try to make the move. That's usually where the wreck sparks.
Yeah, it's guys trying to get to the outside, trying to scramble as they realize they're in a really desperate position, and unfortunately it's multiple guys trying to make the same move at the same time, and they meet the same real estate. And that's exactly what happened right there. It was back around the Minazzi major car. I think it was the first one I saw get around. Callahan was another one as well. It ended up being a very sizable incident, by the way. 15+ cars involved in the tri-oval, and you know, fortunately for the lead pack, it made things pretty simple as they were able to roll around and just pretty much ride in line. We saw the move from Call and from Talon Drake, but everybody else was able to just ride in line because they looked out their rearview mirrors. All of a sudden, everyone out back was just gone. You mentioned Larson Parker being an 11-man transfer group here today instead of 10. Parker actually makes it in the final spot. So you saw Parker get involved in the crash. He scrambled out of it enough to get through the LCQ. He'll claim the final spot, but made it really simple for those first 10 rather, to just come across the line, take care of each other, and make it into the duel and live to race another lap.
Before we get into your race replay, rather white flag lap replay, do want to take a look at the unofficial results here at Daytona for LCQ number 1. Again, your race winner is Paul Gallimore. Didn't see any incidents with him there in the last lap, so I would believe that to be official. Yaroslav Donskoy, great run for him. He'll finish in second here tonight. It's going to be Talon Drake, the last man on the podium. And then Austin Call was aggressive early. It pays off late as he finishes 22 positions ahead of where he started in that 4th position. The Canadian driver, Jack Simpson, he will be headed on to the duels this afternoon. He finishes in 5th. Justin Champagne 6th. Craig Janzak, talked about him trying to advance through with all the damage. He was able to make it happen. He will also be racing in the duels as he finishes in 7th. Mark Von Dell, of course, with the provisional to help get himself into the LCQ, and he makes the most of it, finishing in 8th here tonight. Nick Seipel back in 9th. Brian Hennings will round out the top 10, and the last man that's going to transfer into the duels this afternoon is Larson Parker in the 18 machine.
It's unofficial as of right now for the Larson Parker machine. We'll see if that line for getting in and out changes. Devin Sprecher will finish 12th again unofficially. Corey Wright unofficially 13th. Jason Dinsmore 14th. Jordan Stencil in 15th. Andrew Hansley in 16th. Stephen Callahan in the 17th spot with Josh Newman back in 18th. Munatsi Major finishes in 19th, and it's Josh Sutherland that will go 20th.
As we go back to the 21st finisher here tonight, it is going to be Julian Ricky. Got involved in an incident late and will not advance through. One of the favorites coming into this week, Alex Coffey, made it to the LCQ but will not advance to the duels. He takes on 22nd. Gage Wenzel back in 23rd. Raul Alves, you'll see this in a minute on the replay, almost made it through that last lap wreck, but got caught up at the last part of it, and so he will go home in 24th. Dylan Oss finishes back in 25th in the 99 machine. Drew Blaze 26th with Corey Moore in 27th. Brenton Hunt finishes 28th. Zachary King 29th. And it's Kyle Urbanek rounding out the top 30. And the last two drivers here in LCQ1 that will not advance, Michael Triscaro and Devin Maines, both caught up in accidents, and they will finish 31st and 32nd. Well, let's go back here and take a look at how this last lap broke down. In fact, the incident itself actually took place just a minute before they were going to grab the white flag. It all starts in turn 3. You see the 26 get spit up to the high side, and then watch the 18 machine. Larson Parker, looks like a little contact between him and Seipel. Dawson, not sure if the 75 was trying to go for a big side draft or if Parker is just barely fading up. Either way, they make contact. The wreck's on from there as the field flies apart through the tri-oval.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Parker and company towards the back of the field. Again, this comes with the scramble of being on the final lap. One of these races, man, a really tough break there for Corey Moore as he gets collected very, very late. His car comes back up the speedway. But again, as guys pile in, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday during the heat race, there's just not much lifting on the last lap of the race. And, you know, guys are not just going to get on the brakes when the white flag comes out because the wreck starts. They're going to try to find a way through it. For a couple guys, they managed to find a way through it. It was a little bit too little too late. You see one car get collected there. That's the Brinson Hunt machine very late in that accident as they slid back down the speedway. This accident started over in the start of the trial and didn't end all the way down until about turn 1 entry. As you see Brinson Hunt try to collect that 98 car, unfortunately unable to do so. But again, not many guys are going to lift in that scenario, right? As drivers, the white flag comes out, you know you're racing it back, you know there's not a caution flag, you have to try to find a way through it. And as the wreck starts up front, guys just pile in trying to find a hole through the center. Up front, it was pretty much simple for the win. You saw a nice move from Austin Call, and an even nicer one from Talon Drake. But Gallimore ends up spoiling the party for those two as Donskoy stays with him on the bottom side. You'll see the push right here. So we get a nice shot through the trial. Oh, man. I'll tell you what, Justin Champagne is lucky there. He almost got around in that 38 car right there in the trial. That could have been big, bad news for car number 38.
Definitely could have been very late race implications, but I'll tell you what, big push from Donskoy gets Gallimore the win, and we got to see if we can get a word here with your race winner to kick things off. Paul Gallimore goes to victory lane here in LCQ1. Paul, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir, Austin. How you doing?
Well, you go to victory lane, man. I'm doing good, but I got to ask, how are you feeling right now? Always stressful when you get to these LCQ events, but once you got up front, you never look back, and now you find yourself one step closer to making the big feature tomorrow.
Yeah, it was, well, we got another one to get through, but this one was fun. It was a little challenging. We got mixed up in that little wreck there early, had a little wheel damage, but was able to get that fixed. Kind of got mired in the 20s, thanks to the help of the 10 there. He helped get us back to the front, and then there at the end helped pushed us to the win. So I mean, look forward to working with the next race too. So we're gonna try to get in the duels and see if we can't. Do this all over again. It'd be nice to put that thing, put Bumblebee back in victory lane again. So.
Absolutely. Well, you've had a little bit more experience than a lot of drivers this week because you, of course, had to race your way through the heat. You found yourself here in LCQ #1. Was there anything that you took away from this that gives you a little bit of momentum you feel like headed into the duels this afternoon?
Oh yeah, track position means a lot. You just don't want to, you don't get mired too far back in any event there's any incidents that you just, things that are out of your control. When you're up front, you seem to be able to control more. Sometimes that they even that get bit up there too. But the closer you are to the front, I'd just say that that's where the place to be. So.
Track position is king, and it certainly was here tonight. Well, Paul, I know you got a relatively short turnaround here before you're going to be racing in the duel later this afternoon. But before we let you head out, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's thank my boys over there at BMP. Chris and Cox and all them were helping me get through this. Just kind of spotting a little bit, trying to get me to the stub, and exactly they worked great. All the guys at Team Watson Racing Setups for this great setup here that they put together and sponsor the race and all that. And you guys for putting it on. Icon Apparel up in Michigan for any of your custom clothing needs, and Kenny Coppola who helps us build great sets over at Watson as well. So everybody, there's a lot of people to thank. Can't name them all, but if I'm forgetting anybody, I'm sorry. But this is a huge day for the 11 and Bumblebee and me. So I'm looking forward to the next one, and hopefully get to talk to you guys again later.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, we appreciate you talking to us again. Congrats on the LCQ victory, and we'll see you later this afternoon in the duels.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Paul Gallimore, your race winner here in LCQ #1 at Daytona. Well, Dawson, all week the theme was chaos late, and that's going to continue right here into the weekend. A big wreck out back makes it chaos around the final transfer spots. The biggest difference, the guys that were in did keep it clean on the last lap.
Yeah, the guys that were in decided to take care of each other, and that's something that we definitely thought about in the late stages of this race. If at all possible, I think those guys were going to try to stay in line and work together to get into the duel. And now in the duel, they can start to work together to get into the PGR 500 tomorrow. I think you saw guys find allies. You talked about Gallimore. You heard Gallimore talking rather with Donskoy, in terms of how much he helped the 11 today. Those are not traditional teammates, so you found now an ally potentially in the Donskoy machine that you can use now later in the duel to get you both into tomorrow's 500, and that is the magic of some of these formats when you don't have your teammates in a race with you. And the beauty of super speedway racing is sometimes you just find a dance partner that works, and for Gallimore and Donskoy, it does right there. Before we go, we do want to note there has been a race control call made on the final lap of this race. Nick Seipel will be called for the end-of-line penalty after causing the crash coming to the white flag. He has been eliminated, and as such, Devin Sprecher will be the last car in the 26. So a pair of changes there. Seipel out, Sprecher in after the last lap of today's LCQ. That will change the results just a little bit after, of course, the exchange we saw between Seipel and Parker off turn 4.
Big implications for one of the favorites in Nick Seipel. Well, we're off to a chaotic start here on Elimination Saturday. We've got LCQ2 coming up here in just about 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere. We'll have much more here from the Virtual World Center of Racing. Again, want to give a big shout out to Coasting Thunder for their sponsorship here of LCQ #1. And don't go anywhere. We'll have much more on the other side. We'll be right back here at Daytona.
Elimination Saturday rolls on from the Daytona International Speedway as the 2026 running of the Great American Sim Race nears its beginning. We are less than 24 hours away from green flag in the biggest super speedway race of the year. And now it's time to continue the elimination phase of this event right here on PGR eSports Network. We wish you good afternoon and welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. Before we get started here in LCQ number 2, we'll welcome in our sponsor spotlight for this LCQ. It's brought to you by Coasting Thunder, showing you America one ride at a time. From the biggest amusement parks to the smallest roadside attractions, Coasting Thunder crisscrosses the country, capturing the best travel destinations the U.S. has to offer. A powerhouse team of filmmakers turning experiences into stories. If you want your location showcased the right way, Coasting Thunder is who you call. I want to thank Coasting Thunder for their support of today's LCQ races. We're now into LCQ race number 2, and they are rolling off the grid, so we'll have to keep this one pretty short. I welcome back into the booth with me today, Justin Prince. JP, as they roll off the grid quickly, LCQ number 1, a crazy one. Gotta expect that LCQ number 2 will be more of the same.
Especially since there are a lot of fast drivers towards the back, but as you see with their lineup, there's going to be a lot of competition once again ready to roll.
We'll get in now to the starting grid for LCQ race number 2 here at Daytona, the final of 2 LCQs that will set the field for the DadBot Studios duels coming up later here in the afternoon. On the pole, speaking of DadBot Studios, Justin Johnson will carry their banner on the pole of LCQ race number 2 here this afternoon, looking to make those dual races. He'll start alongside Tanner Long in car 84. A really good run in his heat race, looking to make the run into the duels later on. Row 2, Brandon Broadfoot, a great run in his heat race as well in the 22. He'll have some McCullough Motorsports support today from the 3rd position. Matt Davies will roll from position number 4. Row 3, James Thurston, one of the Super Speedway aces in the field, will go from 5th. It's Johnny Shade, a Super Speedway winner from this past year in the Moonshiners Racing League. He'll go from 6th. Row 4, Jason Raychok in the 71 will go alongside Chris Waldron in car number 3. Then rounding out the top 10, it's the 29 of Cody Rhodes and the 01 of Asher Little.
11th spot today goes the way of Kevin Allen in the Midnight Racing League machine. Then Carmine Caruso in the Penn State machine starts off in 12th. Michael Barksdale, we've seen some flashes. Last time we see him on the racetrack, he'll start 13th. Michael Brown starts in the 14th position. Then at Sean Corbett will start in 15th in the bright yellow machine alongside Austin K. Mitchell, but will look to try and gain track position fast. Then it's in 17th today, Andrew Pellicci will start in the 81. Spencer E. Burns will try and harness his Leighton McQueen with a paint scheme from him tonight. Ryan Derrick and Matthew Campbell, your top 20.
Row 11 going to be Randy Sample in the 24, one of the Grindstone Developments drivers that Austin mentioned last night. He'll go from 21st. Noah Jackson will go from 22nd. Row 12, a notable former professional, current professional in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. How about Zach Novak out of the 23rd position? He's got work to do, and Garrett Jenkins will line up alongside him in 24th. Row 13, Mark Rogers in the 183, and Tobias Matheson in car 75. They'll go 25th and 26th. Mike Ardrey will go from 27th. Another big name in this LCQ, Briar LaPrade, in by virtue of a last lap EOL in his heat race. He'll go from 28th. Row 15, Jaden Newson in the 78, and James Waring in the 13. And a couple more cars, rather one more car to round out the field. It's Richard Elliott in the 02 that will go from 31st. As we head track level, the format is the same. 30 laps in this last chance qualifier race. Still 100% fuel. Still one green-white checkered attempt should we need it. Of course, we needed it back in LCQ number 1. We've needed it in every race so far this week. No fast repairs. That was a storyline last time around in LCQ number 1 as guys were unable to continue in the race due to some damage suffered in some crashes, and a fixed setup provided by Team Watson Racing setups underneath these Gen 7 race cars. You heard Austin note the cooler track temp in the last last LCQ race. It continues to be cooler, 76-degree track temp here this afternoon, a lot cooler than the triple digits we saw throughout the heat races, and it proved that the third line a lot more difficult to get rolling when it came down to business time. Well, 30 laps remain until we set the field for the duels later on this afternoon. Justin Johnson and Tanner Long hope to be the first two that transfer in. They will bring the field into the SimWrap Mark and Restart Zone. For the first time here in LCQ number 2, we will get underway. Green flag is in the air. We're racing in LCQ number 2.
As they come out of turn 2, already calls from some drivers to cool down on the pushes. Asher Little wanted drivers to give him some space in the back as they work their way on the top line. Justin Johnson works high side. Broadfoot leads the inside as they work through 3 and 4 for the first time.
A bit of an interesting move there from Justin Johnson as he'll jump to the outside lane as that inside was continuing to roll forward, so it will be Broadfoot that goes to the lead, but for a moment now trouble. One car around, it's Jason Raychok in the 71. He'll go to the inside. There will be no caution for this as he will spin and potentially hit the inside wall. Will stay green and stay up front. We'll take a check on Raychok later on in the afternoon. Thurston goes to the lead up in the front side of the pack. Justin Johnson benefits off that. He'll go to second, and now some straggling trouble. Around goes the 84 Tanner Long. Around goes Johnny Shade, and it's on. Rhodes is into the outside wall. Asher Little is in it. Spencer Burns is involved. Multiple cars spinning to a stop on the end of the back straightaway. The big one strikes just over 1 lap complete in LCQ number 2.
That's 360 Racing Network caution flag coming out very early. There was chaos about, starting with that trouble off of turn 4. It just got worse up towards the front as things built up aggression, especially with the closing the door. It looked like they're on the 84 machine trying to slam the door in lawn, and chaos struck quickly for everybody else.
Yeah, this one developed very, very fast. We saw Jason Raychok go around first, so we'll go back and potentially try to take a look at that under this first caution as well. You saw him spin out of line in car number 71, so we'll check on him first, then we'll get to what just happened over in turn 2 and onto the back straightaway. So you're watching up front. There's the Raychok machine, third in line, getting pushed by Cody Rhodes. And right here, it's going to be a offset push for the first to the right rear, and he's unable to make the save, and he spins to his left. Now he locks his car down. Does he keep it off the inside wall? He does, so he goes on a lazy spin through pit road and out into the infield grass. This caution will be a big break for him in that all-blue Exalta Chevrolet. We'll go further towards the front. That's where the second incident's going to get sparked up, and it's Tanner Long. You see him there in the 84th, second in line behind Broadfoot on the bottom. And as they worked into turn number 1, was it potentially Cody Rhodes again? I think it was Johnny Shade that was actually the first car that I saw get around in the 45 machine out behind him. Let's see, and there it is. Tanner Long going to come back down. He hesitates. That's the biggest part of that. He hesitates just the slightest bit coming back down, comes across the nose of Rhodes. Shade gets collected. Rhodes gets collected. Nowhere to go for Caruso. That's a big hit for the 44, the Penn State Chevrolet. Tanner Long actually is able to save the car, but out back of them, calamity, as multiple cars are going to slide into this.
Yeah, and those types of decisions, you have to be, what do you say? You have to be very decisive. In that case, Long, with that choice to blend down as slow as he did in that hesitation, is just enough to cause pure chaos with Little, with Barksdale, Mitchell, Brown, Campbell, Burns. A lot of fast cars that were in the mid-pack to start things off, getting collected near immediately, and that will already shake things up. As mentioned, no fast repair when it comes to this one. So these drivers will have to be able to sort themselves out damage-wise with already almost half the field coming down pit road.
Yeah, and again, the no fast repairs was a story back in LCQ number 1. You're out of do-overs here. You had one do-over in your heat race. Starting with last night's pole shootout, that fast repair goes by the wayside, and we saw multiple drivers back in LCQ number 1 unable to finish the race due to damage on their race cars. We can tell you as of right now, at least one car does have critical damage, and that is the Johnny Shade machine. He continues to sit on pit road with a meatball flag on his car for Precision Speed Solutions. A tough break there for Johnny Shade, one of the guys I had circled in this LCQ to go up there and perform and potentially join Paul Gallimore in the dual races. Of course, those two both race on Wednesday nights together. And as we get ready to get back underway, it will be lap 6. An early crash in a race like this can certainly change the tone up front and can kind of get guys to calm down just a little bit. You know, you mentioned just a moment ago, JP, guys on the radio kind of wanting to calm down the pushes just a little bit. I have to imagine now the field starting to consider that option, as we're only 4 laps in and over half the field has damage.
And a couple of the drivers that do still have damage to the racetrack, I believe. So I think for some of the drivers, absolutely, the hope is that you take a deep breath and think you have 30 laps. Yes, it's within a fuel run. Yes, you need to get to a certain threshold to be able to advance. But do you want to have a race car by the very end? Quite simply, the answer is yes. So I think some are going to take it a little conservatively, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the drivers, even those involved in the incident that have clean cars after the repairs, like Burns, push the tempo because of just how their driver mindsets are. And the fact that you have some eNASCAR drivers in the field like Novak and LaPrade that might be looking to try and get a third line going.
Well, we'll get ready to go back under the green flag. James Thurston is your leader on this 5th lap of the race. He will elect the outside lane for this restart here on lap number 6. Justin Johnson will be to his left elbow in the 2nd spot. Then it's Brandon Broadfoot and Matt Davies back on row number 2. Kevin Allen and Carmine Caruso on row 3. Noah Jackson and Matt Campbell will be back on row 4 with Richard Elliott and James Waring on row 5. That crash has resulted in some big movers here in the early stages of this race. Noah Jackson plus 15, Matt Campbell plus 12, Richard Elliott plus 22. He started shotgun on the field today. James Waring plus 20, Jaden Newsom plus 18, Novak plus 11, LaPrade plus 15, Jenkins plus 10, Matheson plus 11, and Mike Ardrey plus 11. Every car from 7th all the way back to 16th is up double digits by virtue of that crash in the mid-pack part of this race. So for those guys, a bit of a blessing. We talked about the saving grace for Jason Raychuk as well. Great job for him to keep that car off the wall. He's back in it now as well in car 71. So look for him to be one coming back towards the front also in that Exalta Chevrolet towards the tail end of this race. Thurston and Johnson are your front row drivers. James Thurston is one I was a little surprised did not advance out of his heat race straight into the duels to be in this race, as Justin Johnson will join him on the front row. But Thurston, a super speedway ace in the 96, and certainly a guy that you have to have circled as a favorite here in this second LCQ to get to the duel, potentially even to make a start tomorrow in the PGR 500. So it's Thurston and Johnson on the front row. Broadfoot and Davies will now be their pushers. Those four started relatively close to the front. For Kevin Allen on back, everyone is +6 or more back to the 16th position. So some new players here at the front of the field. We'll go back green on lap 6, 25 laps to go in this second LCQ race, as James Thurston brings the field into the Simrat Market restart zone for the first time here this afternoon in LCQ number 2. Green flag is back in the air. We're back underway. It's a great jump on the outside for James Thurston. He'll have a choice of lane here headed to turn 1. And as the outside bails to the inside, Davies is left all alone for 3 car lanes. Thurston makes the easy choice. He'll drop to the bumper of Justin Johnson climbing the bank.
Thurston around to the bottom of the racetrack, all while Davies loses ground. Already on the outside line, Matthew Artie Campbell, though, amongst those trying to go for the triple car tandem as they build up some of the momentum. These drivers try to sort out quickly for the 2x2, try and pace themselves. So Pratt Box on the bottom, some of the others just trying to hope to wait for the lines to open, such as Justin Johnson does. Lone Star Racing Machine takes the point immediately.
Justin Johnson again will have the sponsorship of the duels coming up later. He wants to make sure that his car is in those races later on this afternoon. He goes to the point of the push from Brandon Broadfoot. How about the run so far from the 22? He's the lead pusher, but now Johnston will transition back down to the bottom. No, he'll block back to the safer barrier. He sees the outside lane coming. Driving out the rear view mirror is Justin Johnson. Inside here comes Thurston. He's got Caruso as his pusher. Kevin Allen goes third in that line. Davies is the third car on the top side. His cars start to work forward for the first time. Both lanes pretty well even. No one really trying the third lane. Spencer Burns was out of line further back, but nobody going with him. That's not a good recipe to get to the front of the field for that car, and he will drop back towards the tail of this lead pack. Still dead even here into 3. Broadfoot backing off just a little bit. You see the better push is bottom side with Caruso. And as such, Thurston will nose out front, but not for long. Johnson will regain the lead. Third lane starting to get some traction. Pileshi and Burns now up there. No one else willing to go, though, early in this race. The lower track temp, I think, is scaring some guys into thinking that top line won't work. We did not see it work much in LCQ race number 1. It did work for Gallimore, and he ended up being the winner.
Pileshi, though, is making up a lot of ground with Burns on that third line you're referring to a bit. Started to gain at least 2-3 spots over the course of 1 and 2. So keep it on the very top left. You'll see they're a little bit over top that middle line. Some of those drivers really getting advantages. Not too much of a side draft pull either, coming from the straightaways. And they're digging when they're synced up well in the corners with how aggressive some of the checkups are getting in the middle of the racetrack. All while that middle line has died off for the most part. Now that Johnson controlling the bottom of the circuit. Campbell not able to get fully up to speed there. Dead even after losing 4 car lengths down into turn 1 from that middle groove. And Mike Audrey is now leading that outside and coming up quick.
The top lane actually starting to get something moving here in the archery machine. He leads it with Pileshi behind him, and they're up. They were up to James Waring. They drop a little bit of time there in 1 and 2. They're trying to get it going, but now the middle has started to push once more. That's Richard Elliott that's the lead pusher there now with Waring in tow. So that outside lane sees their progress stall just a little bit. It'll be stalled even more here on entry to 3. Davies up. Now Broadfoot is up, and now with the temp cycling up front, that outside lane's really going to start to struggle, I think, to get up into this lead draft, and now it's really going to struggle as Pileshi's going to split. Staggered 4 wide for a moment, Pileshi and Ardrey. Now Burns will push Ardrey as Pileshi bails out of line in the 81 and files in 6th on the outside. Up front, Broadfoot got all the way to the lead, then dropped to the bottom. Davies now will bypass him. He'll have a chance to go to the bottom. He gets turned. Matt Davies gets turned on the bumper of Brandon Broadfoot. Everybody saves it somehow, some way. We keep it going off too.
Absolutely scary move up the 1 and 2. The field had a big sigh of relief from that contact to the bump in the middle of the corner. That's why you don't push the pusher, but here comes Pileshi, trying to bring that very decisive sponsor up to the front to showcase that yes, blue cars are fast. Yes, Rocket League is fun. Let's put it that way. He's looking to rocket his way up to the point. Squeezing 3-1 as Elliott gets pitched down. Davies not willing to push Campbell after that, though, as they work their way to the front. It's Paleshi who takes the lead.
Yeah, the top lane finally got going, and it's Andrew Paleshi that drives from outside the 20th position all the way to the point of LCQ race number 2. Spencer Burns took the left to the middle as soon as they got clear, but the Richard Elliott and James Waring cars struggled a little bit on entry to turn 1. They'll have to rally now to push Burns. Ardrey down to the middle in front of him. Paleshi down all the way to the bottom now in front of the Matt Campbell machine on the bottom side, and it's Jason Raychok from a spin a moment ago to fighting for the lead, although the help fades away just a little bit with Tanner Long out behind him. Ardrey will go to the front now, the Pennzoil car in the center lane. He's got Burns pushing him. Paleshi, Matt Campbell, and Matt Davies on the bottom. The outside reels with 19 to go. 5, make it almost 6 rows in the bottom and middle come clear, but it's a new set of players up front. Paleshi and Ardrey lead the charge. Back to turn 1, you're on board there with Jason Raychok.
Now remember, one of the drivers absolutely on the recovery, but no one's going to work with it. Nobody at all coming up on the outside group. So the 71 goes all the way to the back of the field, and you can see the frustration. All track position lost, only 18 laps to get it back. Going to be very hard to do, to say the very least. By the way, the pusher continues on the front end. We have seen trying to carry the triple car tandems up to the point. Burns is now the pusher for Ardrey. And Spencer Burns, longtime racer on the platform in that 06 machine, is up to second as he rides up with Elliott.
Spencer Burns finally got the right set of help to get him to the front. No surprise that that Lightning McQueen-esque 06 is up here again. Burns, the guy that started the feature for the SummerSlam 499 back in August, looking to make a trip to the Great American Sim Race tomorrow. It starts with a run here in LCQ number 2, and he now goes second. Top 5, make it top 6. Back to Austin Mitchell clear. Now Mitchell will face a challenge from Paleshi up the banking of turn 3. Top 5 were clear for a moment. Now will be 4. Here comes Paleshi on the bottom with Matt Campbell behind him. James Waring and Richard Elliott are into the picture as well, right in front of the Austin Mitchell machine. Rather, that's the Garrett Jenkins machine, I believe, 5th in line onto the top side. So Waring and Elliott from the back to the front, they started 30th and 31st in this race and are now 3rd and 4th with 17 laps to go. It just goes to show how much things can shuffle at the front. Mike Ardrey continues to lead again on the push from Spencer Burns, but the bottom is starting to get rallied, and now a huge gap between Burns and Elliott off turn 2. That bottom lane is going to have a monster run when they get there. The question was, does Burns block? He does. Burns turns left, Ardrey turns left. They both have a chance to block. That will continue to be the Ardrey and Burns show at the front of the banking of 3.
5-car tandem just about on the bottom of the racetrack. They're pushing so hard there. Now the McCall Motorsports machine leads the outside of McCall Motorsports. Rolls a lot of different races when it comes to the money scene, when it comes to super speedways. We're going to flex those speedway muscles here. Elliott just cannot seem to get the speed built up yet. Waring all over his rear end, all of it inside. So he's brought for all the way from 11th on the start of the last lap, all the way back into the top 6. That's how big the checklists are coming. But as expected, Broadfoot's being aggressive. Davies doesn't want either lane to move with that bit of a block.
Yeah, he's trying to block. Instead, it'll be Campbell that blocks up in the 82 machine, as Matt Campbell will get the push from now Broadfoot as they both lead Richard Elliott. I'll tell you, I think what's holding up that outside lane, or what was holding it up rather, was the damage on James Waring's car. He's got considerable front end damage on that 13 from one of the cautions here tonight, or here this afternoon rather, in LCQ number 2. And I think that is what's holding him up so far. Now though, with other cars up there, that lane will start to move. The field works by the lap car, Cody Rhodes. He's up against the outside wall, trying to get a lifeline into this race. He'll need another caution. He's still got considerable damage aboard his number 29 as he goes 1 lap down. Outside starting to roll. It's outside of Matt Davies. You see it there led by Matt Campbell as we watch on board from Spencer Burns looking back at the remainder of the field. The outside stalls a little bit here off turn 2. They're trying to get it moving, but just will not go. The pushing up front has been very effective from Burns and Paleshi. Matt Davies and Justin Johnson, they're making it a 5-car stack on the bottom. When they all get squared up, that bottom lane rolls really well. Right here on exit, they'll look at Broadfoot, tandem to the back of Campbell. That outside should roll once again.
Yeah, right now it's about 194 to 195 miles an hour for the bottom line. It's only just now getting to that same mark at the start and finish line. That's how in sync these drivers up top are. They need to figure out what to do quickly here, because That's going to make it hard for anybody to really advance, but as we've already passed halfway in this race, Dawson, this is getting to where you expect, for some of the drivers at least, the hope is keep it calm, especially up at the top 4, top 5 spots. You have the track position. It's now the matter of hoping you stay out of potential chaos with some of the drivers looking to streak to the front. Now it could get interesting though on the outside again, because Justin Johnson, who is one of the few that's really made it work when he's been the lead car, is flying. He's already picked up a couple spots with Campbell being a really good pusher.
That line's still only able to get alongside Matt Davies. One car going to get hung out of line. James Waring's trying to let Richard Elliott back down, and that's going to throw the parachute out the right side window of Justin Johnson, as only 3 cars now lead that outside lane. They're trying to get back up, but you see it is so crucial with the cooler track, Tim, that you have multiple cars right up on top of each other to get lanes moving. Move to the outside. Here comes Elliott. He'll bring Waring to the party with him. Another car jumping out to the outside with them. They're going to bring 3 wide to the party here in turn 3 and really anchor that middle lane down now as they work up the banking. That's going to drag all of those cars back to work the back. Top 6 clear on the inside, back to Sean Corbett. Make it 7 back to the Asher Little machine in the bright green sun drop Chevy on the inside as Johnson tries to rally the middle. It's just not working right now for that middle lane. Johnson and Campbell, they've been hard at work for the last 5 laps trying to make that lane move. It is just not moving. Johnson, that was close as he squeezes into a gap about 7th in line on the bottom, make it 8th in line on the bottom for Johnson. And up front, this is exactly what the leaders want to see. What the doctor ordered for the guys running 1 through 8 is it's single filed out here down the back straightaway. It's 3 wide further back. But that third lane is really going backwards with the damage from James Waring. They'll file in as they work past a lap car on the inside here. That's going to get interesting as Chris Waldron goes 1 lap down. But everybody able to move on past. It's now single file all the way through the field, at least all the way through the first 9 to 10 cars. Johnson trying to rally the top side, almost a crash out back with Caruso and Jackson. Everybody keeps it going really quickly while they're still calm before we get the 10 laps to go. I do want to give an opportunity to go downstairs for the first time. Tyler Victor, our pit reporter, real quick. You got an update for us. What you got?
Yeah, right now, Waring, Elliott, a few of those guys in that team, they're all just trying to work together. They're trying to make that third line work, struggling a lot as it is, overhearing on the radio. The other team too, Asher Little helping out with Brandon Broadfoot. Asher has been struggling a lot when it comes to trying to find some open lanes to be able to make some moves. So he's been a little frustrated on the radio, but he's trying to do what he can. So there's a lot of communication on the radio, a lot of drivers struggling and being in one lane, but it's just a lot of communications left, right, and center for the drivers.
No surprise here in the LCQs. Track conditions completely different, and it has completely changed the way that these lanes have raced. The bottom in this race has been incredibly dominant. The middle has just not been able to get it working. Now they're starting to, though. Johnson pushing Jayden Newson, and look up top side JP. The trio was working. That was Raychok, LaPrade, and Novak that were together for a moment as they start to try to get racy. They're all outside transfer positions right now.
And they immediately ditched Raychok, in fact, as they were not confident. Trouble in a checkup. 3 wide as Elliott had to dodge to the outside. Broadfoot really held up the middle line. That's forced a 3 wide move. Big scissor down the track. Broadfoot trying to clear himself. Caution flag is out. Mitchell gets spun around. Elliott slams in a Sample. Sample slams the inside wall. All sorts of scattering as that brings us back to yellow.
We knew that was going to happen at some point, the way they were starting to race from about 10th on back into the field. Richard Elliott does get a piece of this one as well. Multiple cars are involved in this second caution of LCQ number 2 that comes out inside of 10 laps to go. And we'll start to get a look back at it. You heard JP talking about there was some bumping and banging and guys trying to throw 3 wide moves, and they run out of room. Broadfoot was one of the ones that was involved in this one as well in the 22. So his good run takes a turn here late in the going of this race as well as we continue to look at the Richard Elliott machine. Let's take a look back at the replay and get an idea of what sparked this one up. This is, again, back around Elliott and Broadfoot. You see a couple of other cars coming into picture. That's Barksdale coming in there in the big red Chevrolet on the bottom. And Broadfoot, it's another hesitation. This is the same thing we saw from Tanner Long on the first caution as he hesitates to jump down in line. And when he finally does, he gets turned from behind. Big hit there for Elliott. Not sure particularly which car that is. Austin Mitchell is the red and white car. It might have been Randy Sample that was the car that got into Elliott and ends up hitting the inside wall in the yellow and silver machine. So a tough break for some guys there. But again, JP, it's the same thing we saw earlier. It's hesitation. You have to be decisive. And right there, unfortunately, a little bit indecisive for Brandon Broadfoot, and that sparks up the second caution.
I don't know if he was fully clear in the first place, hence why I think he hesitated at first, then committed to it, knowing I've already moved down. I've got to stick to it. You already see Sample rolling slow here with the result of the contact. For a lot of these drivers, though, this is the type of aggression we were expecting here. Watch this right now from Sample, because he was one of the drivers that was hoping maybe, just maybe, I could dodge a little bit to the inside. Novak missed. Sample did not. Kicked out by Elliott's fender, that slams to the inside wall, and that's got to be very frustrating where you try and thread the needle, and the needle hole ends up closing up, and instead, you get kicked aside. And in this case, Sample's chances are toast.
So Sample will come down pit road, severe damage to his race car, even worse damage to the Richard Elliott machine, who he hit right there. The left front wheel is completely off of its bearings there for Richard Elliott. So a tough break for the 0-2, one of the McCullough Motorsports entries today. It was Richard Elliott. Unfortunately, his damage does appear to be critical. A meatball flag aboard that car will mean that his day is likely over in the 0-2. So we'll get ready for a late restart with inside of 10 laps to go when we go back green. And we had started to maybe consider the fact that we would go all the way towards the end of this race under the green flag. Of course, that did not happen here inside of 10 laps to go. Will send us now into another late restart. Of course, every race this week, including the pole shootout last night, if you missed it, has used a green-white checkered attempt, the one available to us. All 13 races to this point have. We have not yet seen a race end under the green flag in a regulation format. So this race is still an opportunity to do so. We'll go back green with 6 laps to go. 6 laps is a long time, though, to make it back around clean and green. And as we've seen throughout this race, some of these moves are getting bigger. They're getting more desperate. And now, unfortunately, for some guys, it's taking them out of contention. We talked about Richard Elliott and Randy Sample. Cody Rhodes is 1 lap down in the 30th position. He continues to fix damage on pit road, as do a couple of other cars. And 1 car officially out of this race, the 45 of Johnny Shade. So a few cars with critical damage, and the moves now will only get bigger. And again, I look back at the Zach Novak and Briar LaPrade machines. They are 20th and 21st with inside of 10 laps to go. They absolutely will be the first cars on the move on this late restart.
Those were the drivers I was about to mention there, because LaPrade was trying to ride to the back. Novak, we've seen a couple times, was thinking about planning the move to be able to get ahead. And then obviously the stack-up happened with the incident. Wouldn't be surprised if those are the two that link up, because it's about trust in this situation. We know they have races already. NASCAR, the trust is going to be there. Everybody else is going to be, well, they're going to try and hook up with their respective friends or teammates here. But in these cases, when you have those different groups clash, it's how well are they going to be able to work together? The third line can work. We've seen it already make 1 or 2 major moves. You need basically this whole entire amount of time, though, Dawson, I think, to really get it solidified. Because unless there's big checkups, it's going to take a lot of time to build up momentum of that outer groove and get the right drafting partners together.
If I trusted any 2 cars to make it happen, of course, LaPrade and Novak would be 2 towards the top of my list to get up there and make a run happen in the outside lane. So we'll see if they can do so. That likely, with only 6 laps to go, is going to be their only method of getting to the front, or at least inside a transfer position. They don't have to get up here and win the race. They just have to finish in the top 11 spots, but they certainly have to make something happen quickly here, running out just outside of the top 20 for both of those cars. So we'll keep an eye on them, 2 of the big names in this LCQ race, as they work to try to get into transfer positions. Of course, it's top 11 that advance out of this LCQ race. If you're just joining us, top 11 cars will head on to the duels coming up in a few hours from now. Everyone else will be sent home after either 6 laps, maybe a few more if we have to use the 1 overtime attempt. Mike Ardrey has run a fantastic race, so too has Spencer Burns. They will look to finish the job here with 6 laps to go in LCQ number 2. Green flag is in the air. Ardrey off and running. Poleshi got a good start behind him. Burns and Davies left in the dust on the outside as 4 cars will tandem up back to Asher Little on the bottom. Corbin trying to reel. Kevin Allen trying to join the fray as well, and up the banking of 1 and 2. It's all Mike Ardrey.
And we have chaos in the back. Justin Johnson amongst those involved. Long slams the wall. Several drivers slide across the circuit. They were trying to blend up the circuit. Remember, the 44 Caruso had damage, and they had offset 3 wide to the heart of the field, spark chaos into 1.
Yeah, this is a tough break for a lot of guys out back. There's a possibility that Zach Novak and Briar LaPrade are both involved in this one as well. So we'll start to get a look back at that. We talked about the race that Justin Johnson had run to this point, and it started to take a turn for the worse for the driver of that machine as he will work off the banking. The damage does not look too bad on his car. You see Michael Brown has some damage. We talked about the storyline of him back in the heat races. He led late in his heat as well. So we'll check the damage on a number of these cars. Being told that Briar LaPrade has some severe damage on his 88. A big storyline if so. But we'll take a look back at the replay. Watch Justin Johnson inside lane right there in that blue and black and white Ford Mustang to the inside of Caruso, and Caruso works down the track and turns Justin Johnson, and it is on from there. Complete and total chaos. Tanner Long is involved. I have no idea who scooted by on the outside. That's about the luckiest someone's been all week. Noah Jackson is involved in the 20 as multiple other cars slide in. Michael Brown got a piece. Another car was down towards the inside grass. But again, there appear to be more cars involved in this. There's Novak going by. He may be okay, but we have been told that there is severe damage on Briar LaPrade's machine. Watch the green 88 and the red 2 as they come into this. And LaPrade, there it is right there, a hit on the left rear. Novak is involved as well. So both of 2 of the big storylines are involved in a late caution right after we talked about them. And Justin Johnson and Tanner Long slide down the racetrack right there. Caruso coming down was never really clear to make a move to the bottom. Unfortunately, turns Justin Johnson, and it was calamity in turn 1.
I think it wasn't a move to get to the bottom there when they stole Dawson. I think it was a move for Caruso thinking, I'm going to take a 3 wide underneath Michael Brown. The problem is, gap never established, was close in the first place in terms of squeeze. That was a very bold move that, as you can see, hooked both of them in that circumstance for the contact. And now that will take a lot of drivers back down pit road, including some that led earlier, like Johnson, like Campbell. And now for a lot of these drivers, it's a reset situation where you're going to have maybe a natural green-white checkered coming up to decide this thing, Dawson. You're running out of laps. And at this point, if you're amongst the front 5 or 6, I think you're in an okay spot as long as things don't cause themselves to get really what we've seen with some of the heats with chaos.
Well, in the LCQ number 1, if you'll remember, there was a crash outside the transfer positions that ended up leading to the top 10 basically staying in line. We saw a move for the win, but it was nothing that endangered any of the transfer cars. So if you're inside the top 11 right here, if you watched LCQ number 1, you got to be feeling pretty good. But there's also got to be some communication going right now between the drivers up front, and that's, look, let's take care of each other to a degree. Obviously, if things start to get dicey back around the 11th position, that's a little bit different. But these guys, rows 1, 2, 3, and 4, you've got to think they're all communicating the same thing. Hey, let's take care of each other. Again, if it gets dicey, we have to go for it at the end, so be it. But until that happens, they can just try to push 4 cars in line either way. Nothing too crazy, but they're only going to have to make it 2 laps. And as such, they could push in line and likely all 8 make it to the duels without anything crazy happening on the last lap of this race. So you got to think that they're communicating between each other right now. But again, as we saw back in the heat races, sometimes that doesn't matter, as these guys will make moves on the last lap inside the transfer spots that can endanger drivers' chances of advancing. Again, the top 11 will move on to dual race number 2 later on here this afternoon. We'll take a break after this race. Coming up here in just a little bit, we'll finish this one coming up with 2 laps to go. We'll have a natural green-white checkered right here, by the way. But then later on, it is the Dadbot Studios dual races for the PGR 500 at 4 o'clock. We'll go green for dual race number 1, but these guys will advance into dual race number 2, which will go green around 5:30 Eastern here back on PGR eSports. So hope you'll join us for that. Those will be the 2 races that will officially set the field for tomorrow afternoon's PGR 500. We have finally made it to the final qualification steps that these guys need to make a step into the Great American Sim Race. These guys still have work to do. Of course, 11 are already in duel number 1, and that field is completely set. Looking forward to that later on this afternoon, as 20 of those drivers will join the 3 provisionals and the 2 front row starters for the PGR 500 tomorrow. Speaking of the provisionals, by the way, we'll give you a note on that as well during this broadcast and the next one. Daniel Falkingham advances via his previous champions provisional into the PGR 500, being last year's winner, and 2 sponsor provisionals heading into tomorrow's PGR 500. Chris Blanchard will race with the title sponsor provisional. So too will John Ward by virtue of the Flying Aces. So a trio of cars already in based on provisionals. If you missed it, last night's pole shootout, Aaron Brown will start outside pole after his second place finish, and James Bomar will bring the field to green tomorrow as the pole sitter by virtue of their 1-2 finish in last night's pole shootout. We're getting ready to go back green. It is an overtime attempt almost. We're into a natural green-white checkered here, but you might as well think about it the same in terms of your mindset of what moves to make. Mike Ardrey and Andrew Pileshi have run a really, really nice LCQ so far. They run 1-2. James Thurston and Spencer Burns are 3 and 4. Asher Little is 5th. Matt Davies 6th. Sean Corbett 7th. Kevin Allen 8th. Jaden Newson is 9th. Ryan Derrick is 10th. Tobias Matheson, as of now, is the last guy in. I look for Raychok here. I look for Novak here. And anything that Briar LaPrade can get out of that 88, I'm looking for those 3 cars. Big storylines of guys still outside the top 11. Green flag back in the air. Ardrey off to the races. It's another good start for him. He's got Thurston in tow on the roll to 1.
A huge jump into 1. In fact, with Thurston already up by 2 car lengths. 3 Little able to streak up to the 3rd spot as well. Pileshi still struggling to get up to speed. Here comes Davies to join on in. First 4, 5 cars on the inside working their way through. Now the question is, who will try and jump around as drivers try and shuffle? Contact for the battle for 6 with Newson, nearly getting turned.
Will the field make it back to the white flag? They're a half a lap from getting there. Raychok gets hung out of line. He'll have Chris Waldron with him as Pileshi tries to rally the middle lane. Top 5 clear on the bottom. Back to Corbett. Make it 6. Back to Newson. And as the field works off turn number 4, Mike Ardrey will bring this 32-car field to the white flag. 1 lap to go. Presented by Bender's Bar and Grill.
They work their way down into turn 1. The front 5 or 6 just hoping for things to stay clean. Pileshi working hard with Burns and Allen, trying to help their sinks. Bubble spot. Matheson trying to hunt the inside. Still 2 by 2 as they work to the back straightaway. 1 final time.
Ardrey, Thurston, Little, and Davies for now can protect one another, but they see the outside lane starting to get a bit of a run down the back straightaway. Here comes Pileshi. Asher Little up to block in car 0-1. Will it be enough, though? Thurston's going to make the move. He'll jump to the right rear of Ardrey. We're going to race for it here in LCQ number 2. Outside. Where did Zach Novak come from? Madison blinks out. Off turn 4. Drag race. Thurston middle. Ardrey bottom. Pileshi top. Thurston will win LCQ number 1, or LCQ number 2, and it's a scramble out back. I'll tell you what, JP, Zach Novak got in by the skin of his teeth. What a move for car number 2.
How about that with the 3-wide move? How about that? But Thurston able to play the lanes and show his expertise to get himself the win. My goodness, it came down quite simply to what lane you were in, Dawson, and how well you can cure the momentum, and Novak just had enough space to get the pole in his sig.
Wow, what a run for Novak. We'll talk about that in a moment. For James Thurston, I talked about him earlier. Again, a guy that loves the super speedways. I expected him to be strong in his heat race. He was. I expected him to be strong in this LCQ, and he lived up to the billing as he gets the victory, his first win of his PGR 500 week. So he'll get the smoke show here on the front straightaway and get to show the fans a little bit of celebration as he gets the win in LCQ number 2, and we'll see him later in dual race number 2. It's a big win for him. You talked about the confidence boost that a win could be for a guy in a heat race. You talked about a guy like Charlie Morgan in heat number 11 the other day. You talk about the winners throughout the week. Paul Gallimore in LCQ number 1. I think that's a big boost to him too. You heard him talking about his momentum and his confidence now headed into his dual race. I think it does the same for Thurston as he has beached this car on the front straightaway.
And reset it for good measure already in the celebration, but it takes a lot of skill to be able to get a win at Daytona. It takes a lot of luck to survive to the end, and in this case, we had our first clean finish to get to the end with no trouble for GWC.
Yeah, notably, the curse is over. The first race this week to finish in regulation is LCQ race number 2 here on Elimination Saturday. So a great finish for these guys up front. We'll now get into the finishing results. These are unofficial as of now, but with no crashes inside the top 11, it's likely that these will be made official. James Thurston is the winner, and that is completely official now. He'll start furthest forward in duel number 2 of these 11. Mike Archery finishes second. Asher Little, great run for him in the third spot. Andrew Pileshi comes from back in the field to finish in the 4th position. Matt Davies finishes in 5th. Kevin Allen continues his run with a 6th place effort. Spencer Burns will move on in the 7th spot. How about Sean Corbett in 8th? He'll go from that spot in the 45. Michael Barksdale, a nice run for him in the 9th spot. Jaden Newson rounds out the top 10 in the 78, plus 19 for him, by the way, in this race, into a transfer spot. And then the drive of the week is Zach Novak as he finishes 11th and will live to see duel number 2 later on.
Austin K. Mitchell is the first one out. Look at the difference on the pylon. 7 1,000ths of a second. It's razor thin in the very end. What an ending for the 27, just one spot shy. Ryan Derrick is 13th with Garrett Jenkins at 14th. Then it's Broadfoot in 15th. Ray Jock finishes down at 16th. Didn't have the help when he tried the outside. Brown and LaPrade 17th and 18th. Waring finished in 19th. Mark Rogers rounds out your top 20, Dawson.
And again, these are the guys not moving on. Unfortunately, Justin Johnson will not be moving on as of right now into dual race number 2. He finishes 21st. Chris Waldron in the 22nd spot. Cody Rhodes finishes in 23rd. Tobias Matheson in 24th. You saw the connection issue for him. That is a heartbreaker for Matheson on the final lap as he blinked through most of the field. Tanner Long in 25th. Matt Campbell in 26th. Carmine Caruso in 27th. Randy Sample back in 28th. Noah Jackson in the 29th spot. Richard Elliott in 30th. And Johnny Shade finishes in the 31st spot, the final car in LCQ number 2. A quick note about Justin Johnson. There's a possibility we will see him later in the dual race. He might have a dual race provisional. So we'll keep an eye on that storyline. We'll let you know before dual race number 2 if Justin Johnson is still going to start in that race later on. Well, before we get to your winner, James Thurston, we do want to take an opportunity to look back at the replay of this finish, and I want you to specifically focus on the drive on the outside. Look at the 2 of Zach Novak. I have no idea how he got the 3rd lane to roll, but he got some late second help from Ray Chalk, from Michael Brown, and he does just enough to get in. I mean, he's 3 wide for the transfer position at the line. By far the best race for the transfer spot that we have seen so far this week.
Especially when you factor in the main reason I think Novak even had a chance is those 2 up at the front on the outside line too, with Burns as well as the 81, and Pileshi gave him the toe, but right there, that's how close it is just in the battle for second alone, and it ends up being razor-thin margins, as you see, with a 3-wide move with the 8 and the 78 for Novak's edge. Razor-thin edge to be able to make your way through into the duels today.
Yeah, so 11 of those guys in your frame back to Novak. Those are the 11 that advance forward to the duel in one of the best finishes we've seen this week as well so far. And again, the first one to go in regulation. But the man ahead of all of them, the man coming away with a win here in LCQ number 2 and advancing to dual race number 2 is the 96 of James Thurston. He's your winner. And we'll get a quick word from him after his win here in LCQ number 2. James, it's the boys in the broadcast booth. You got a copy?
Yes, I do.
Well, boy, a chaotic one here in LCQ number 2, but the first race this week to end in regulation. And lucky for you, the 3 wide happens out back in your mirror. Take me through a wild one here in LCQ race number 2.
Yeah, man. I mean, we started off really strong there. I got the lead on like lap 1 or 2. They wrecked, got shuffled back after we went green again. And I narrowly avoided getting wrecked on about lap 7 or so. They almost piled it up big, and I saved it. Got back going straight, and yeah, there at the end, we restarted. I think it was like a second on the inside, and I just was pushing the guy in front of me. I wasn't even going to go for it because I was just trying to get in. But down the back there on the last lap, I started seeing my temps rising, and it was getting me a little bit worried. So I was like, if I can get clear up top, I'm just going to go for it, purely for the temps, just for the temps, man. And I was just trying to keep the temps low, and I got such a good enough run that I was able to pull it around the outside and clear for the lead. And at that point, I just had to make sure I was ahead of everyone else, and they couldn't really get back to me. And we just won the whole thing.
Well, absolutely you did. And look, today a little bit different track conditions, and I want to talk about that as well. Much lower track temp than we saw for the heat races, up in the hundreds today, a 76-degree track. It looked to me as if it changed the way not only the third line could run, but it also changed, the big runs we've seen from each lane. Oftentimes in the heats, the bottom of the middle would get hot very quickly, and the other lane would be able to thrive. Today, I feel like it took a lot longer for that to happen. What did you feel inside the racetrack in terms of the track temp that changed the way the racing worked today?
Yeah, I was expecting that top lane, that middle lane, to be kind of where the power was, and it really wasn't there most of the race. It seemed like the bottom kind of held on pretty strong once we would get on a few laps green. Uh, we never really got to run super long green, so I don't really know how that's going to fare if, like the race later is going to be like that. But yeah, the bottom lane and the middle lane kind of both seemed pretty equal to me. It wasn't really as strong in the middle. It meant made for some really good racing. I had a lot of fun out there, and I just want to say I took off work to do this today, so at least it paid off a little bit.
Well, a quick turnaround for you now in LCQ race number 2. Of course, in about 3.5 hours, we'll see you on the grid for dual race
And
number 2.
well,
So take me through. Go ahead.
let me just thank my sponsor real quick, or else they'll get mad at me. Got to thank Drip Drops, Moneta, Cardano, Brian Murphy especially, Murphy eSports. Got to thank all of them for making this beautiful race car. They're on the race car, obviously. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful car. Thank you to Devin for designing this thing. And yeah, I'll let you guys go ahead with your stuff.
Well, I did have one more question for you before we gave you a chance to thank and shout out your sponsors. I did want to ask, with that quick turnaround now, what's the game plan for dual race number 2 starting towards the tail end of the field, and what's your confidence level that you could race tomorrow in the PGR 500?
I mean, I'm as confident as I could be as far as whether I'll be able to race in that. I think that race later is just going to be really, really focused on not getting in wrecks. That's the biggest part, is just avoiding getting in trouble and trying to get up front as fast as I can. Because if I can't get up front early, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get there. When they get gridlocked towards the end of these things, there's really just nothing you can do to get up. And I'm sure you guys saw that a lot in the back of the field here. It's being up front is just extremely important. So starting the back is going to be pretty hard, but I think that we'll have enough time to get up front and get things rolling. And if we can just get a little bit lucky, stay out of all the trouble, there's no reason why we can't go out there and win that race too.
We're looking forward to it in dual race number 2 later, seeing if you can race into the Great American Sim Race tomorrow. Anybody else you'd like to thank or shout out here before we let you go and get prepped?
Yeah, just Cardano, Moneta, Drip Drops, Brian Murphy, Murphy Esports, Power Smash, Infinity Speed Motorsports as well. My personal team that I have. Just super happy to win this thing. I don't know if I win anything else this weekend. Just to win anything at all, I'm super, super happy and grateful to win, even if it's just an LCQ. Just thanks to y'all for the broadcast and the interview and everything. Just I'm ecstatic right now. I can't wait to race later.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. Thanks for the time and talking to us for a second. Congratulations on the win here in LCQ number 2. Good luck later in dual race number 2, and we'll see if we're seeing you in the field tomorrow for the Great American Sim Race.
All right, thank you.
James Thurston, your winner from last chance qualifier number 2. And, JP, I think the excitement that guys continue to have, I go back to Aaron Brown in Heat 5. I go back to Charlie Morgan in Heat 11. The excitement that guys have to win these races and to be, in these positions. Bomar last night as well in the pole shootout. The excitement, and we're not even to Sunday yet, but to hear the ecstatic, reactions in these guys' voices, it tells me how much this means to some of the guys racing, really to all of the guys racing. And certainly now, as we turn over to the duels, that excitement only going to get turned up to 11. Now it really starts to become a big deal. It really starts to become real that you're this much closer to the PGR 500.
Especially knowing how much pressure is going to be with the duels coming up in just a couple hours or so, because you're going to have to perform with a lot more laps to be able to deal with in the first place, and with the best of the best when it comes to the multiple hundreds that enter this event. If you want to be able to succeed, you have to be able to beat the best. And so far today and throughout this entire week, we've seen drivers try and fight hard just to prove they can be the best. Now, it's about trying to make sure you prove it's not just a fluke, that you can do it again to be able to make it to the big show tomorrow.
Well, we'll start to wrap things up here for the last chance qualifiers from Daytona. 2 action-packed wild races have locked in the final starting spots for each of our 2 DadBot Studios duels later on this afternoon. James Thurston wins last chance qualifier number 2. Paul Gallimore goes to victory lane in last chance qualifier number 1. And 22 more drivers have locked their way into the final step before the PGR 500. We are now down to just 3 races left on the weekend. The heat's done and over with. The pole shootout is complete. We know the front row for tomorrow. And now the last chance qualifiers are behind us as well. The only step remaining is 2 dual races later on today. Those will kick off at 4 p.m. Eastern back here on PGR eSports. And of course, we will have Justin and Austin back in the booth later on with us here this afternoon as we set the field for the PGR 500 tomorrow afternoon. Certainly a ton of storylines to keep an eye on there. We're going to take a little while of a break now. Again, we'll be back shortly before 4 p.m. Eastern for coverage of both dual races, 60 laps each this evening to set the field for the 2nd annual Great American Sim Race. I want to thank my broadcast crew here from this afternoon. Our producer downstairs, Christian Hill, doing all the hard work on the production controls. Our pit reporter this afternoon, you'll see him later as well, Tyler Vickery. My co-host today, Justin Prince for LCQ Race number 2. I want to thank all of them for their work. I want to thank all of you for watching and hope you'll join us later on for the DadBot Studios duels as we set the field for the biggest sim racing super speedway race of the year. My name is Dawson Wise. You've been watching a production of PGR eSports and the last chance qualifiers for the PGR 500. We'll see you later on for the duels. Don't go too far away. We'll be back at 4 p.m. Eastern. See you then.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
simulators, and this was like very responsive. Especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point.
Make you feel like you're really driving, it feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
When you're looking for a setup and a community that stands behind it. Team Watson Racing Setups. Serious setups. For drivers who are done guessing.